What if the answer or the best decisions involved D, E, and F, something that we never even considered?
Mastery is like a staircase.
What makes some people seemingly more creative and imaginative than others?
The most important step of all. If you don't do this step, you're never going to reach mastery.
I'm sure that all of us, or maybe most of us, have encountered more or less the following scenario. We have a problem to solve, a project to create or direct. Along the way to completing this project, at certain junctures, we have to make some decisions. We have to choose between A, B, or C, whether to go in this direction, over here, or over here. We do the best we can based on our knowledge and experience. But often, after the work is done, we have the sensation that there is something missing, that perhaps we could have done it better. What if the answer or the best decisions involved D, E, and F, something that we never even considered? What blocks or limits us from considering these wider options? We're all aware of great historical figures who have indeed demonstrated the ability to consider D, E, F, and beyond. This is the source of their incredibly creative power to make uncanny discoveries or to invent the kind of things that change how we think and act. We see examples of such people around us in the world today. What makes some people seemingly more creative and imaginative than others? Is it genetics, a matter of luck? Is it being born into a great family, going to the right school, etc.? Well, in my book, Mastery, I attempt to definitively answer this question. I maintain that true creativity comes through a process that I describe in great detail in my book. To summarize it as briefly as possible, this process begins with the critical first step of choosing which field or subject to pursue. Creative people are those who opt for career paths that mesh with their deepest interests and inclinations. They feel a deep personal need to discover something about the world, to solve a problem that perplexes them, to invent something that's simply not. Feeling personally engaged and motivated in their work, they focus more, they learn faster, they're more patient and persistent than other people. Having begun on the right career path, the first step, the next step is to go through an effective apprenticeship, absorbing all of the rules and standard procedures in your field and accumulating the maximum amount of skills. Now, I believe we all go through an apprenticeship phase of one sort or another. And at a certain point in this phase, we reach a kind of turning point or crossroads. Either our minds will become active and experimental with the knowledge that we have accumulated, in which case we will slowly awaken creative energy, or we will become prisoners of that knowledge. We remain conservative and conventional, our minds just simply rotating between A, B, or C. Well, masters are those who take the first path, and after years of generating creative energy, they reach a point where they have a complete feel for their subject. They have internalized it, they have mastered it, they can see all the way to the end of the alphabet. Creativity is not a function of some freakish genetic wiring that occurs in the brains of a few people. It is instead the function of awakening and exploiting the natural creative energy we all possess. I want to involve you in a very short and simple exercise. It's going to seem kind of moronic, but the purpose of it will become clear soon enough. I'm going to be asking all of you to close your eyes and for the space of a minute, to try to completely empty your minds. Have no conscious thoughts, no mental images, go totally blank. Well, the reason I had you do this simple exercise is to illustrate what I consider the basic principle about the human brain. Its natural state is one of constant motion and association. It's like a smooth ball bearing at the top of an endless incline. Unless it is obstructed, unless it is made still, it will just keep rolling and rolling and rolling until the day we die. It moves in constantly shifting chains of connections between ideas, sensations, and memories, equaling what we call the stream of consciousness. The human brain is a dual processing system in which any piece of information or perception is instantly compared to another one in our short or long-term memory to generate a sense of pattern and continuity, or to take notice of things that don't fit into these patterns. The brain functions through comparison and association. If we are tired or about to fall asleep, or even if we dream, we can suddenly become aware of the most bizarre associations that are going on, as if the brain were doing this on autopilot below the level of consciousness.
The most important step of all. And I'm saying, if you don't do this step, you're never going to reach mastery. And it's basically discovering what your calling is in life, what your vocation is, what you were meant to do. Because the idea is very simple. In order to reach mastery, you have to accumulate so many hours of practice and experience so that your brain can have so much information and experience that connections start occurring. We'll talk about later the famous 10,000 hour rule that you might be familiar with. You have to reach that level of knowledge and experience. It doesn't matter what field it is. You could be a manager, a football player, it doesn't matter. You have to accumulate experience. You're never going to get there unless you have an actual love for what you're doing. It doesn't mean every moment is thrilling, but you have to be personally and emotionally engaged on a level. Once you know what your vocation is, you have to go through an apprenticeship. You have to learn as much as possible. You have to accumulate those 10,000 hours. You have to develop skills. Learning is what you're after, not money. Mastery was like a house. Creativity involves being close to your unconscious and be a little looser with how you think about things. And so I explored this metaphor of the house, and I thought, this is what it's like. You have a house, and there's the basement. And the basement is kind of your unconscious. And when you're a child and you're born and you enter the world, you're in this room. And this room is full of light. And what I mean by that is, you're so excited about the world, and everybody here can remember when you were 5 or 6 years old, you had this hunger to learn. The world seemed so interesting to you. You wanted to learn about dinosaurs and history and science and everything. And so you're in this room that's just flooded with light, and you're just excited about everything, but slowly you're leaving the room and you enter like this hallway that gets narrower and narrower and narrower and darker, and you're just sort of trapped in a conventional area where the same things repeat. That light isn't there anymore, and you're just going down this narrow path in which there's nothing new. I know that sounds very depressing. Mastery is like a staircase. You're finally, in a weird way, you're returning to that childhood-like moment. You're going up this staircase step by step. You're learning about whatever it is your skills are, and you're advancing. You'll learn more one day, the next year you know even more, and you arrive at a point where you now enter a room that is so much vaster, filled with so much light, and it's like the room that you were when a child, but even better. And why is it better? Because you have the mind of a child, and I'll describe later what I mean by that at some point. You have the openness of a child who wants to learn, and the fluidity, and you have all of this experience and practice. And the end game of mastery is to reach what I call high-level intuition, which all masters have. Steve Jobs had it, Albert Einstein had it, Mozart had it. They don't have to think anymore. Ideas come to them. It's at their fingertips. When you're in that room full of light, you understand things in such a deep, immediate way. And then I thought, oh, okay, now I understand my own dream about why mastery is kind of a house. It's poetic, but that's sort of how I imagined it. Okay, mastery is a form of intelligence. Now, I maintain in the book that we put too much emphasis on intellectual intelligence, that we think intelligence is just a matter of books and going to school and getting the highest grades, but this is something else. This is an intelligence that comes from practice, from actual experience, and it's not just intellectual, it's also emotional. Because in order to reach mastery, you have to be very strong. You have to put up with all the criticisms that people throw at you. You have to put up with failure. You have to put up with people doubting you. You have to put up with your own boredom. My God, 10,000 hours. I'm so sick of doing the same thing over again. You have to put up with that. You have to be tough. So mastery isn't easy, and it requires something emotional, which is persistence, determination, resilience. The motto of Leonardo da Vinci, who was the icon of my book, is ostinato rigore. I don't know for any Italians out there. It means rigorous persistence. And Da Vinci said, the only reason I am so much better is I am more persistent. That's the secret to my success. If I encounter a problem, I won't let go. That was the secret of Einstein. That was the secret of Steve Jobs. So it's this intelligence that you get from not just your knowledge, but also your experience and your practice. And at that point, you're at what I call high-level intuition, and your thinking is much faster. So you watch a great chess player, they don't have to sit there and think about a move. They've already seen in a glimpse 20 moves ahead. Okay, so that's mastery. Mastery is mixing the animal and the human, where at that point, your thinking is so quick that you have the instinctive reactions of an animal, a horse, an eagle, a lion, or whatever it is. You're neither an animal nor a human. You're gifted with reason, but not enough to figure things out. You're emotional like an animal. You have reason, but you can't put them two together. And your emotions are constantly making you make bad decisions. Mastery, you're above that. You're supremely rational and quick in your thinking. So Machiavelli had the idea of the perfect power person being part lion, part fox, but he also said it was part animal, part human. So I'm being a little Machiavellian here, which is, I say the best way to learn is learn by doing. You're going to learn more in 3 months starting your own business than you would learn in 20 years at a business school. You're really going to learn how things work. And they're doing that. They're making you go out and actually work, and then you're getting real-time instruction. In law schools in America, they're having a program now at NYU where instead of there's like a third, fourth year of law school that's pretty useless, where you're working on your thesis and nothing really happens. Places like NYU, they're making you now go work for a real law firm for that fourth year and see how things really operate in the real world. So learning by doing, and what we're doing in that, if it were business school or law school or whatever, is we're actually going back to the Middle Ages, to the apprenticeship system that existed in the guilds of Europe. You look, you have these amazing cathedrals here. Who built these cathedrals? They were people who didn't go to school to learn how to build a cathedral. They went to the apprenticeship system, and they learned from the first day they entered the guild. They were working with leather, with wood, whatever it was, with their hands. They were given very menial jobs, but they were learning. There were no teachers, there were no books. They had no books back then. They observed and they worked. And after 7 years, they could now become a journeyman and take a test to become a master. And the great Gothic cathedrals of Europe were built by people whose name we have no idea were, and they had no schooling, but they were master craftsmen because they learned by actually doing something. I want us to go back to that world where people are master craftsmen. They make things that are brilliant, that are solid, that are built well, and you learn best by doing. And so maybe business schools and law schools are returning a bit to that idea where the students need to now go out and actually try their ideas in the real world and see how things work.